Before the stadium lights, before the paparazzi flashes, David Beckham's kingdom was a greasy sink filled with mountains of dirty plates. Imagine him not in a tailored suit, but in a soggy apron, wielding a sponge like a sword against spaghetti sauce stains. His hair wasn't styled with expensive gel. It was sticking out from steam and soap bubbles, giving him the accidental look of a rock star who had been electrocuted by a toaster. Customers never suspected the dishwasher boy was secretly plotting his path to football stardom. The restaurant kitchen was chaos. Chefs screaming in French even though it was an English diner, waiters crashing into each other like bumper cars, and pots boiling over with what looked suspiciously like swamp water. Amid the madness, Beckham scrubbed. He scrubbed like his life depended on it, imagining every plate was a rival defender he had to take down. Forks clinked like the sound of a crowd cheering. Glasses sparkled like floodlights over Old Trafford. To everyone else, it was just dishwashing. To him, it was training. But Beckham wasn't just washing dishes. Oh no, he was multitasking in the most absurd way possible. With a football tucked under one arm, he'd balance plates with the other, sometimes kicking the ball gently against the wall to keep his rhythm. Picture suds flying everywhere, plates stacked like skyscrapers, and a football bouncing dangerously close to a boiling pot of soup. The chefs begged him to stop, but he grinned. "I'm practicing my control." Dishwashing was his secret boot camp, and the sink was his first stadium. His co-workers thought he was odd. "Who brings a football to work?" they'd mutter, as Beckham dribbled between crates of tomatoes. He'd wink and say, "One day people will pay to watch this." They laughed, splashing him with dishwater, but he didn't mind. He was rehearsing for the day when laughter would turn into applause. And besides, every splash only added more shine to his apron, his unofficial uniform of resilience. At the end of each shift, Beckham would leave smelling like a mix of garlic bread and bleach. He'd walk home, football tucked under his arm, dripping soap suds like some bizarre superhero. To the world, he was a dishwasher. To himself, he was already a footballer in disguise. Dishwashing wasn't glamorous, but it gave him one crucial skill: patience. And patience, combined with soap bubbles and a stubborn grin, was about to become his secret weapon on the pitch. When Beckham wasn't drowning in dishwater, he was out in the backyard, turning an ordinary patch of grass into Wembley Stadium. The crowd consisted of two confused pigeons, a nosy neighbor with binoculars, and his mum occasionally yelling, "Don't break the fence again, David." But to him, the cheers were deafening, the lights were blinding, and every kick of the ball was broadcast live across the universe. His backyard wasn't small, it was infinite, as long as his imagination had room to play. He invented commentary for himself too, announcing in a dramatic voice, "And here comes Beckham, fresh from a dishwashing victory, ready to take on the world." He'd then trip over a garden gnome, roll dramatically on the ground like a pro footballer faking injury, and spring up again as though nothing had happened. Even the pigeons fluttered as though booing his performance. To Beckham, every moment was theatre, every blade of grass a stage, and every goal scored against the back fence was a headline. Sometimes he played against invisible defenders. Number 7 passes to Beckham. Beckham shoots. Then he'd pretend the imaginary goalkeeper dove the wrong way, dramatically chasing the ball into the bushes. Other times he roped in his friends, bribing them with biscuits to play goalie. They rarely lasted long, mostly because Beckham celebrated every goal as if he had just won the World Cup, sliding on his knees across the dirt, ripping his jeans, and spraying mud everywhere. The biscuits weren't worth it, they decided. His parents tolerated the madness, but often found their house shaking from thuds of the ball smashing against the walls. Plates rattled, pictures tilted, and once a vase gave its life in the name of Beckham's practice. "David," his dad would shout, "use the garden, not the living room." Beckham nodded obediently. Then 10 minutes later, he was practicing free kicks inside again, curving the ball around furniture like it was a wall of defenders. Even the family dog grew tired of chasing stray balls, sighing like an exhausted referee. Through all the chaos, Beckham's obsession was unstoppable. He treated each practice like a mission. The garden hose became a trophy, the wheelbarrow turned into a rival striker, and the neighbor's cat was the ultimate goalkeeper, hissing every time the ball rolled too close. For Beckham, the dream was already alive. He didn't need a real stadium yet. In his head, he was already playing under floodlights. And while the pigeons, neighbors, and cats didn't buy tickets, they were still his first audience. Beckham's first official step into football wasn't glamorous. It was awkward, sweaty, and filled with oversized uniforms. Imagine a skinny kid drowning inside a jersey 2 sizes too big, socks pulled so high they could double as parachutes, and boots that squeaked like rubber ducks. The coach barked orders like a pirate. "Run faster, tackle harder, don't trip over your own shoelaces." Beckham nodded, then immediately tripped over his shoelaces. The team laughed, but he picked himself up with soap bubble determination still stuck to his soul. Training sessions were like slapstick comedy. He tried dribbling past defenders, but ended up dribbling past himself, spinning in circles like a malfunctioning washing machine. Passing drills? Half the time the ball smacked a teammate in the back of the head. Shooting practice? Let's just say the nearby trees became the most decorated goalkeepers in history, yet every mistake made him hungrier, grittier, funnier. Where others got frustrated, Beckham just grinned, as if every failure was another rehearsal for greatness. The locker room was its own battlefield. Older players joked about the dishwasher boy trying to play football. They teased him for smelling faintly like garlic bread and soap, even on the pitch. But Beckham flipped the insults into fuel. "Better a dishwasher than a bench warmer," he shot back, surprising everyone with his cheeky grin. The teasing didn't sting, it motivated him. Every time he tied his oversized boots, he imagined he was lacing up armor. Every scrappy practice was a dish being scrubbed, one step closer to sparkling success. One day, during a drill, something clicked. Beckham bent a free kick, not perfectly, not famously, but just enough for the ball to swerve slightly and land in the net. The coach's eyebrows shot up like fireworks. "Do that again!" he barked. Beckham tried, and while the second ball sailed into the bushes, the magic was undeniable. There was something unusual about how he kicked, like the ball was an obedient pet that followed his command. His teammates stopped laughing, for about 5 minutes anyway. Still, it was enough to light a spark. Beckham realized that while he wasn't the fastest, strongest, or loudest, he had a secret weapon: precision. Like scrubbing stubborn stains from a plate, he knew persistence mattered more than brute force. If he kept practicing, bending the ball would become second nature. And so, while others went home after training, Beckham stayed behind, kicking again and again, curving each ball until the setting sun turned the field golden. He wasn't just training, he was rewriting destiny, one awkward kick at a time. By the time Beckham landed in Manchester United's youth program, he felt like a dishwasher who had finally been promoted to head chef. The facilities were massive compared to his backyard stadium, and the uniforms actually fit, mostly. He still looked like a kid lost in a laundry pile, but there was a glint in his eyes that no oversized sock could hide. Coaches shouted, balls flew, and the atmosphere buzzed like a microwave about to explode. Beckham was terrified, but he was also thrilled. The first matches were chaos. Imagine Beckham nervously jogging onto the pitch, waving politely to opponents as if he'd been invited to afternoon tea. Then, bam! A defender slammed into him like a runaway fridge. He hit the grass, coughed up some mud, and popped back up, smiling. "Good tackle," he muttered, brushing dirt from his teeth. Fans in the stands weren't sure if he was tough or just completely bonkers. Either way, they started paying attention. His style slowly emerged: precise passes, clever footwork, and those early attempts at bending the ball. Every time he curved a shot, even slightly, teammates gasped. It was like he had borrowed a piece of magic from a cartoon wizard. Of course, not every attempt worked. Sometimes the ball bent beautifully into the wrong goal. Sometimes it curved straight into a hot dog vendor's stand, leaving ketchup splattered like a crime scene. Still, he kept experimenting, as though football was his personal science lab of nonsense physics. Off the pitch, Beckham was becoming a character. His hair, once chaotic from dishwashing steam, was now a carefully curated battlefield of spikes, fringes, and questionable gel choices. Reporters began noticing him, not just for the football, but for the flair. Some called him stylish, others called him ridiculous. Beckham didn't care. To him, it was all part of the game. If defenders couldn't figure out whether he was a fashion icon or a footballer, maybe they'd be too distracted to stop his passes. Every dishwasher has a dream of escaping the sink, and Beckham's dream was materializing faster than anyone expected. From scrubbing forks to scrubbing defenders, his journey was absurdly cinematic. Fans loved the underdog story, the boy with suds in his past and stardust in his future. And while he wasn't yet the global icon who'd launch 1,000 hairstyles and perfume ads, the spotlight was beginning to follow him. Slowly but surely, the dishwasher was stepping into destiny's glow. As Beckham climbed into the professional ranks, his past as a dishwasher became a running joke among teammates and fans. "Careful," they teased. "He might clean your boots better than he cleans defenders." Beckham just grinned, polishing the ball on his jersey as though it were a shiny dinner plate. The truth was, dishwashing had given him something no coach could teach. Relentless repetition. Where others grew bored of practice, Beckham found rhythm: scrub, rinse, repeat, just like pass, kick, bend. Soon enough, those free kicks weren't just quirky, they were legendary. Balls curved like boomerangs, like cartoon bananas in midair, like they had been bribed to ignore the laws of physics. Commentators screamed, fans gasped, goalkeepers wept quietly into their gloves. The phrase, "bend it like Beckham," became an anthem, whispered by kids in playgrounds and shouted by dads who couldn't bend their knees, let alone a football. And every time he stepped up to the ball, it was as if the ghost of dishwater bubbles floated behind him, cheering him on. Fame hit him like a runaway dishwasher on wheels. Suddenly, he was everywhere. Billboards, interviews, even lunchboxes. People argued about his haircuts as much as his goals. Was it a masterpiece of style, or did he just lose a fight with a lawnmower? Either way, it didn't matter. He wasn't just a footballer anymore. He was a brand, a symbol, a global cartoon character come to life. From soap suds to stardust, Beckham had washed his way into immortality. But through the glitz and glamour, he never forgot his roots. Whenever he returned to old haunts, he'd joke about picking up a sponge again. Anyone need dishes done? He'd laugh, winking at fans. It was more than humor. It was a reminder that even icons start somewhere small, ridiculous and slippery. His story wasn't about being born a star. It was about scrubbing through the muck until you shined. And so, the dishwasher who trained with pigeons, gnomes and angry cats became one of the most famous athletes on the planet. His legacy wasn't just in goals or trophies, but in the bizarre, bubbly journey from the back of a greasy kitchen to the front of football history. Beckham proved that greatness doesn't always begin in stadiums. Sometimes it begins with a sponge, a dream, and a very slippery apron.